Imagine waking up before the first light of dawn cracks the horizon, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. Your bed is a simple mat of woven reeds on a packed dirt floor, and as you stir, you hear the soft breathing of your entire family crammed into this one-room hut. This isn't a dream, it's the reality for millions of ordinary people in ancient China, a world where survival hinged on the whims of the seasons, the emperor's decrees, and the invisible threads of fate woven by ancestors and gods. But what if I told you that in this seemingly harsh existence, there were moments of profound beauty, ingenious innovations, and shocking customs that would make your modern life look downright mundane? Stick with me, because we're about to dive into the everyday lives of these unsung heroes, the peasants, artisans, and merchants who built one of the greatest civilizations in history. And just when you think you've got it figured out, I'll reveal a twist that might change how you see the past forever. Let's start at the beginning. Who were these ordinary people? In ancient China, spanning from the shadowy mists of the Shang Dynasty around 2000 BCE to the opulent Tang Dynasty in the 7th to 10th century CE, society was rigidly divided into classes. At the top sat the emperor, divine and untouchable, followed by nobles, scholars, and officials who ran the vast bureaucracy. But the backbone, the real engine of the empire, was the peasants, making up over 90% of the population. They weren't glamorous warriors or silk-robed courtiers. They were the dirt-under-the-nails farmers who toiled from sunrise to sunset to feed the nation. Curious yet? What did a typical day look like for Li Wei, a fictional but representative peasant in the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE to 220 CE, when China was at its innovative peak? Picture this. Li Wei rises in the pre-dawn chill of his thatched roof hut, built from mud bricks and bamboo, huddled in a small village surrounded by endless rice paddies. No alarm clocks here, just the crow of a rooster or the distant bark of a village dog. His home is modest, a single room where he, his wife Mei Ling, their 3 children, and perhaps elderly parents all sleep, eat, and live. The walls are thin, offering little protection from the biting winter winds or the sweltering summer heat. But here's a mind-boggler. Despite the simplicity, these huts were ingeniously designed. They often featured raised floors to guard against floods, a common scourge in the Yellow River Valley, known as China's sorrow for its devastating overflows that could wipe out entire villages in a single night. Li Wei lights a small oil lamp made from clay, fueled by sesame or hemp oil. Electricity? Not for another 2 millennia. As the flame flickers, he whispers a quick prayer to the household gods, tiny clay figurines on a shelf, begging for a good harvest. Ancestor worship was huge. Every family had a shrine where they offered food and incense to deceased relatives, believing their spirits influenced daily fortunes. Miss a ritual, you might invite famine or illness. Intriguing, right? But what fueled their bodies for the grueling day ahead? Breakfast is simple but sustaining. A bowl of congee, that watery rice porridge, perhaps flavored with pickled vegetables or a bit of salted fish if they're lucky. Rice was king in the south, millet or wheat in the north, staples that kept the empire alive. No coffee or toast. Tea wouldn't become popular until the Tang Dynasty centuries later. Li Wei's family grows their own veggies, cabbages, radishes, soybeans. Soybeans were a game changer. Ancient Chinese fermented them into soy sauce and tofu, protein powerhouses that fed the masses cheaply. Mind-boggling fact. Tofu, that vegan staple today, was invented around 200 BCE during the Han era by accident when a cook curdled soy milk with nigari. But meat? Rare for peasants. Pork or chicken only on festivals, hunted wild game if they dared risk the emperor's forests, which were off-limits to commoners. Starvation was a constant shadow. A bad harvest meant eating tree bark or worse. Yet here's the hook. How did they turn scarcity into culinary genius that influences your takeout today? As the sun peeks over the misty fields, Li Wei heads out to work, tools in hand. A wooden plow pulled by an ox if his family can afford one, or just a hoe for back-breaking manual labor. Farming was the heart of life. The Chinese calendar was lunar-based, tied to agricultural cycles like planting in spring and harvesting in autumn. Rice cultivation was brutal, flooding fields, transplanting seedlings knee-deep in mud, weeding under the blazing sun. Women like Mei Ling joined in, but also managed the home, weaving cloth from hemp or silkworms they raised themselves. Silk, that's where it gets fascinating. Ordinary families often raised silkworms, boiling cocoons to unravel the threads, a secret China guarded for centuries, punishable by death if leaked to foreigners. But peasants couldn't wear silk. That was for the elite. Merchants, surprisingly, were at the bottom of the social ladder, below even farmers, because Confucianism valued production over profit. So, leeway, toils, but what if a tax collector shows up? That's when things get tense. Taxes were relentless. Peasants paid in grain, labor, corvée for building walls or canals, and sometimes sons drafted into the army. The Great Wall? Built on the backs of ordinary folks like Li Wei, many dying from exhaustion. But here's a payoff to your curiosity. Innovation saved lives. The iron plow, invented in the Warring States period, 475 to 221 BCE, made farming easier in Europe for centuries. Wheelbarrows, paper, invented by Kai Lun in 105 CE, and even seismographs to predict earthquakes. Ancient China was a hotbed of tech. Mind-boggling, isn't it? Peasants used these tools daily, yet life expectancy hovered around 30 to 40 years due to disease, wars, and famines. But wait, what about family life? Was it all work and no play? Or did they have secrets to joy amidst the hardship? Family was everything, the core unit of society, patriarchal and multi-generational. Li Wei's parents lived with him. Filial piety, or Shao, demanded absolute respect for elders. Confucius taught that harmony started at home. Sons obeyed fathers, wives, husbands, younger siblings, older ones. Marriages were arranged, often for alliances between families, not love. Girls married young, around 15, and moved to their husband's home, serving in-laws. Foot binding, that horrific practice of wrapping girls' feet to keep them tiny, a symbol of beauty, started in the Song Dynasty, 960 to 1279 CE, among the elite, but trickled down, crippling women for life. Shocking, right? But for ordinary women like Mei Ling, life meant childbirth, high mortality, childcare, and household chores. Children were a blessing and a workforce. Boys learned farming, girls weaving and cooking. Education? Rare for peasants. Only boys from wealthier families studied for the imperial exams, a merit-based system that could elevate a poor scholar to officialdom. Imagine a peasant's son memorizing classics by candlelight, dreaming of escaping the fields. But most never did. So, how did they unwind after a punishing day? Lunch might be more congee or steamed buns in the fields, shared communally. Villages were tight-knit, neighbors helped with harvests, forming bonds stronger than blood sometimes. Evenings brought relief. Family gathered around a clay stove, storytelling or playing games like Wei Qi, an ancient strategy board game still popular today. Mind-boggling, fireworks started as bamboo tubes thrown into fires to scare evil spirits, evolving into gunpowder wonders by the Tang. But religion wove through it all. Taoism for harmony with nature, Buddhism imported from India for karma and rebirth, and folk beliefs in ghosts and omens. Peasants consulted fortune tellers using yarrow sticks for the I Ching, an oracle book predicting futures. Curious about health? No hospitals. Herbal medicine, acupuncture, dating back 2,000 plus years, and moxibustion, burning mugwort on skin. But plagues like smallpox ravaged villages. Yet here's the twist. Ancient Chinese hygiene was advanced. They boiled water, used chopsticks to avoid hand-to-food contact, invented 3,000 plus years ago, and had public baths in cities. Chopsticks, from bamboo or bone, not forks. Why? Easier for bite-sized food, and legend has it they prevented assassinations by detecting poison. Addictive, huh? But what if rebellion brewed? Life wasn't always peaceful. Heavy taxes and corrupt officials sparked peasant uprisings like the Yellow Turban Rebellion in 184 CE, where peasants donned yellow headscarves and overthrew Han rule temporarily. Ordinary people suffered in wars. The Warring States era saw constant battles, with peasants conscripted as cannon fodder, well, arrow fodder. But in peaceful times like the Tang Golden Age, cities buzzed.
Wait, cities? For urban commoners, life differed. In Chang'an, modern Xi'an with over 1 million people, merchants hawked spices from the Silk Road, artisans crafted bronze bells, ubiquitous in Shang times for rituals, and street performers juggled pot sticks. Curfews enforced order, drums signaling gates closing at dusk. Violators faced lashes. Shocking fact, Tang women enjoyed more freedom, playing polo or wearing revealing clothes, unlike later eras. But for rural peasants, isolation ruled. No strangers, simple exchanges.
Now, let's zoom into a crisis. Flood season. The Yellow River bursts its banks, drowning fields. Li Wei's family flees to higher ground, losing everything. How do they survive? Community aid, government granaries, if benevolent emperors like those in Han stocked them, or migration. Famines led to desperate measures, selling children into slavery or eating guanyin soil, clay that filled stomachs but often killed. Heart-wrenching, yet resilient. Payoff? This hardship birthed engineering marvels like the Grand Canal, dug by peasants to link rivers and prevent famines. But what about love and loss? Marriages lacked romance, but bonds formed through shared toil. Widows remarried quickly, no welfare system. Children died young, infant mortality high, but survivors carried the family name. Fast forward to the Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644 CE. Peasants still farm, but now with cotton crops revolutionizing clothing. Blue-dyed jackets became commoner uniforms. Mind-boggler, the Ming built the Forbidden City, but ordinary folks lived in Yuan courtyards, if urban, fostering extended families. Entertainment evolved. Opera troupes traveled villages telling tales of heroes. But foot-binding peaked, deforming women's feet for lotus shape, a status symbol that hobbled them. Why endure? Beauty standards tied to marriage prospects. In the Qing, Manchu rulers imposed queues, braided ponytails on Han men as submission, refuse and face execution. Peasants adapted, growing opium later, leading to wars. But daily life? Still agrarian, with tea houses for gossip. Surprising, commoners lived better than Europeans until the 1700s, higher nutrition, longer lives in good times. As night falls on Li Wei's hut, he shares a tale by firelight of the first emperor Qin Shi Huang, who unified China but buried scholars alive. The family laughs nervously, superstition lingers. Bedtime comes, tomorrow repeats. But here's the ultimate hook. These ordinary lives forged a culture that invented printing, compass, porcelain, shaping your world. What if one innovation changed everything? Gunpowder, meant for immortality elixirs, became weapons. Mind-boggling legacy. We've scratched the surface. Clothing was layered tunics, colors denoting status, yellow for emperors. Hygiene, toothbrushes from hog bristles. Transportation, ox carts or feet, no horses for poor. Trade, barter or copper coins with square holes. Punishments, brutal, like the 5 penalties, tattooing to amputation. Yet poetry flourished even among peasants, like Du Fu's verses on suffering. In Shang times, 1600 to 1046 BCE, life was more ritualistic, bronze vessels for ancestor offerings, bells everywhere signaling events. Peasants divined with oracle bones, cracking turtle shells for prophecies. Zhou, 1046 to 256 BCE, introduced feudalism, lords owned land, peasants serfs. Qin, 221 to 206 BCE, centralized, standardizing weights, but forced labor built terracotta army tombs. Han innovated, paper for records, seismographs detecting quakes 1,000 miles away. Tang, cosmopolitan, with foreign influences via Silk Road, Persian dances and tea houses. Song, urban boom, foot binding starts. Yuan, Mongol rule, peasants oppressed, but pasta possibly introduced. Marco Polo claim debated. Ming, Great Wall fortified, novels like Journey to the West entertained. Qing, population exploded to 400 million, straining resources. Through it all, ordinary people endured rebellions like Taiping in 1850s, killing millions, or natural disasters. Yet they celebrated Lantern Festival with riddles, Dragon Boat with races honoring drowned poet Kuo Yuan. Final twist? Ancient China's emphasis on harmony and innovation stemmed from these humble lives.
Without peasants' rice, no empire. So, next time you eat stir-fry with chopsticks, remember Li Wei, his sweat in every grain. But hold on, we've only peeled back the first layer of this ancient tapestry. What if I told you that beneath the daily grind of plowing fields and weaving cloth, ordinary Chinese people harbored secrets of resilience that could rival any modern survival story? Secrets involving underground cities, forbidden loves, and even early forms of social welfare that predated Europe by centuries. As we delve deeper, you'll discover how these unsung lives weren't just about endurance, they sparked revolutions in thought, art, and technology that echo in your smartphone and morning tea. Curious about the hidden rhythms of their nights or the taboos that could shatter a family? Let's keep unraveling dynasty by dynasty, because the real mind-boggler is how their ordinary innovations quietly conquered the world.
Let's rewind to the cradle of it all, the Shang Dynasty, 1600 to 1046 BCE, where life for commoners was steeped in mysticism and bronze. Imagine Zhang Min, a typical villager in the Yellow River Basin, waking not to a rooster, but to the clang of ritual bells echoing from the nearby royal tombs. Homes were pit dwellings, half-underground hovels dug into the lowest soil for insulation against brutal winters, with thatched roofs that leaked during monsoons. These weren't just shelters, they were fortresses against spirits. Shang folk believed in a world teeming with ghosts and deities, so every hut had oracle bones, turtle shells or ox scapulae cracked over fire to divine the future. Zhang Min might inscribe a question like, "Will the harvest fail?" on a bone, heat it until it splintered, and interpret the cracks as yes or no from the ancestors. Mind-boggling, isn't it? This wasn't superstition, it was proto-science, the earliest form of writing in China, evolving into the characters you see on menus today. But what did they eat in this Bronze Age bubble? Diets were grain-heavy, millet boiled into gruel, supplemented by wild greens foraged from forests teeming with deer and boars. Hunting was communal, with bamboo bows and stone arrows, but overhunting risked angering the mountain gods. Women like Zhang's wife ground millet on quernstones, their hands calloused from hours of labor, while brewing early forms of beer from fermented grains. Yes, ancient Chinese partied with alcohol long before Europe's medieval ales. But here's a shocking twist. Human sacrifice was real. Commoners sometimes volunteered or were forced as companions in royal burials, buried alive with chariots and bronzes to serve in the afterlife. For ordinary folk, death meant simple graves with pottery offerings, but the fear of unrestful spirits kept them vigilant with nightly rituals. Intrigued? What if a drought hit? Did they just pray, or was there genius at play? Droughts triggered migrations or desperate irrigation digs, using bamboo pipes to channel water, early plumbing that foreshadowed later canals. Work was gendered. Men hunted and farmed. Women managed silkworm farms, spinning threads into rough cloth dyed with plant extracts like indigo for blue hues. Clothing was functional. Tunics of hemp, padded with cotton in later eras, but in Shang, animal hides for warmth. No buttons, ties and sashes. But payoff alert, Shang artisans, often commoners drafted into labor, cast intricate bronze vessels with tautia masks, mythical beast faces, that baffled archaeologists for centuries. These weren't just pots, they were portals to the divine, used in feasts where villagers shared roasted meats and danced to drum beats under starlit skies. Playtime? Kids tossed knucklebones, early dice, or played tag in muddy lanes, oblivious to the oracle's omens. But as the Shang fell to the Zhou, life shifted. Feudal lords rose, and peasants became serfs bound to land. Ready for that upheaval? Enter the Zhou dynasty, 1046 to 256 BCE, a time of philosophical flowering amid chaos. For ordinary Wang Lei in the spring and autumn period, life meant tilling a lord's fields under the well field system.
8 families farmed a square plot divided like a tic-tac-toe board, with the center for taxes. Ingenious communism? Sort of. It ensured equity but chained peasants to soil, paying rents and grain. Homes evolved, rammed earth walls for durability, with courtyards for livestock like pigs, China's favorite protein source. Wang wakes to ancestral tablet prayers, then heads to fields with bronze sickles, metal tools spreading from elites to commons, boosting yields. But wars ravaged. The Warring States era, 475 to 221 BCE, saw constant conscription, peasants marching with spears, leaving families starving. Women stepped up, managing farms alone, birthing kids in huts without midwives. Childbirth mortality? Sky high, with herbal remedies like ginger for pain. Yet here's the hook. Amid bloodshed, thinkers like Confucius roamed villages, teaching ethics to commoners. Peasants quoted his analects: respect elders, work hard. Mind-boggling, this grassroots philosophy shaped governance for millennia.
Daily fare? Wheat noodles in the north, ancestors of ramen, twirled with chopsticks carved from bamboo. Veggies like leeks, stir-fried in woks, an invention that conserved fuel. Fuel was precious, wood scarce, so dung patties burned in stoves. Evenings? Lanterns of horn or paper lit storytelling sessions about legendary heroes like the archer Ho Yi, who shot down suns. Kids learned morals through fables, while teens courted discreetly, arranged betrothals but stolen glances at village fairs. Fairs buzzed with bartering, salt, iron tools, pottery. Merchants, still lowly, traveled with donkey carts along rutted paths, dodging bandits. But what about health crises? No antibiotics. Acupuncturists poked needles, bronze ones, to balance qi, or herbalists prescribed ginseng for vitality. Plagues? Quarantines in villages, with shamans exorcising demons. Shocking custom, some families practiced ghost marriages, wedding deceased singles via effigies to appease spirits. As Zhou fractured, unification loomed, but at what cost to the ordinary? The Qin Dynasty, 221 to 206 BCE, slammed down like a hammer. Emperor Qin Shi Huang standardized everything: weights, measures, even axle widths for carts to fit roads. For peasant Chen Hua, this meant efficiency, but tyranny. Forced labor built the Great Wall, a snake of rammed earth and stone snaking 13,000 miles, devouring lives. Chen might toil hauling bricks, eating millet cakes, dreaming of home. Homes? Standardized too, grid villages with watchtowers for surveillance. Legalism ruled, harsh laws like execution for tardiness. But innovation payoff, the crossbow, mass-produced for armies, trickled to hunters. Clothing unified, black robes for all, symbolizing water element conquering fire, Zhou's symbol. Women bound hair in buns, men in topknots. Education? Banned books. Qin burned Confucian texts, burying scholars alive. Peasants whispered rebellions, leading to Qin's quick fall. Enter Han, the golden era of expansion. Back to our Han friend Li Wei, but let's deepen. Trade boomed via Silk Road, bringing exotic fruits like pomegranates to markets. Ordinary merchants, despite low status, hawked spices in bustling towns, using abacuses for math, China's calculator precursor. Li's wife might sell woven baskets, bargaining fiercely. Gender roles? Women could own property in Han, unlike later times. But concubinage existed. Rich men had multiple wives, but peasants stuck to one due to poverty. Kids played with clay toys or kites, invented in Han for military signaling. Festivals like Double Ninth involved climbing hills to avoid evil, picnicking with chrysanthemum wine. Mind-boggling, Han invented the magnetic compass for feng shui, aligning homes for good luck. Death? Elaborate tombs with Ming Chi figurines, mini clay servants buried instead of humans. But rebellions like red eyebrows, peasants with painted brows, showed discontent. As Han waned, 3 kingdoms chaos ensued, warlords drafting farmers, inspiring epics like Romance of the 3 Kingdoms, recited in tea-houses. Jump to the Sui and Tang, 581 to 907 CE, eras of reunion and splendor. For urban commoner Sun Mei in Chang'an, life pulsed with diversity. The Grand Canal, dug by millions of laborers, ferried rice north, averting famines. Homes? Multi-room compounds with gardens, paper windows letting in light. Diets? Enriched. Tea became daily, boiled with salt or butter. Tang women rode horses, played polo, freedom sparked by Turkic influences. Poetry flourished, even peasants hummed Li Bai's verses. Printing, woodblock in Tang, spread Buddhist sutras to homes. But An Lushan Rebellion, 755 CE, killed millions, peasants fleeing as refugees. Shocking, Tang had equal field system, allotting land per person, a proto-welfare to prevent poverty. Games? Mahjong precursors with cards. Health? Variolation, early smallpox inoculation with scabs, centuries before Jenner. Song Dynasty urbanized. Kai Fang's million residents enjoyed night markets lit by oil lamps, street food like jiaozi dumplings. Peasants used movable type printing for almanacs, but foot binding began, crippling women for elegance. Neo-Confucianism tightened morals. Invasions by Jurchens forced southern migration, rice terraces blooming. Mind-boggling, Song invented banknotes, easing trade for merchants. Yuan, 1271 to 1368, Mongol rule, oppressive taxes, but pasta and yogurt introduced. Peasants staged operas critiquing rulers. Ming, 1368 to 1644, Navy voyages brought sweet potatoes, boosting food security. Forbidden City rose, but commoners in hutongs, alleys, gossiped in tea-houses. Qing, 1644 to 1912, Q hairstyles enforced, rebellions like White Lotus mystical sects. Opium dens emerged, addicting masses. Yet foot-binding peaked, women secluded. Through floods, wars, inventions, ordinary lives wove China's fabric. From Shang bones to Qing cues, their stories aren't relics, they're the pulse of history. Next time you sip tea or fly a kite, thank them. The twist? Their harmony quest inspires modern mindfulness. What legacy will you leave?